Good morning, my queen. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
You can hear me, darling?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Can
We're going to start with you this week. This is exciting. Oh, and look who's back. Queen Lorraine is back. Wow, I missed you. Hello. Good morning, Lorraine. Oh, she's ignoring me. She's
Good
ghosted.
morning, everybody.
Darling, how are you, Lorraine? It was lovely to at least see you last week in that interesting context.
In Civvy Streets.
Oh, that's fantastic. So we're so thrilled to see you. We can't manage without you. And beautiful Donna's joined us in the middle of the night. Good evening again, my gorgeous queen. Oh, I just get it.
Hi, everybody.
You are looking.
Congratulations, Megan. Very well done.
Thank you very much. But congratulations belong to Tara and the team that she put together. Like, there's no way that I could do any of this without them, but also to Josh and his bravery and the things that he said. Wow, that man blew me away.
I was going to say, Megan, I've been thinking about Josh. A lot of people have been talking with me about Josh. Obviously, Megan, you and Piper are probably the most famous people in the north of Australia at this point. Like, people are just, I'm in the corridor and it's like, I went to the toilet this morning and people talked about you, Megan. So just so you know, you're that famous. If you're toilet banter, you know you've made it, right? But can I say, Josh, so many people have sent me messages about you and your commentary about LinkedIn and important knowledge and the ranking of knowledge, Josh. So you're unbelievable, mate. Oh
no, not at all. I've been out of action with pneumonia for the past 3 weeks. It was really nice to start. Like, Megan, your presentation was the first bit of scholarship I've got to do this year, and it was just awesome to start off the year getting to listen to what you presented. I thought you did an amazing job, and it's just such a cool project. So.
And thank you. I'm just so grateful for your honesty. But not many people would be brave enough to say, yeah, that was me around the water cooler, running that bitch down. not that you ran. No, that's not how it happened. But but thank you for sharing. I really appreciate it. And I really hope that you'd be prepared to come to one of the book clubs, because what you said was it was invaluable.
No, thank you. I learned a lot from your presentation, and I think I knew I would. I've been listening to little threads of your topic through the meetings, and I thought, oh, this is going to be cool. I'm gonna really unpick a few things about my own biases. So yeah, it was awesome. I'm so excited to see where it goes.
And look, Josh, I mean, there's a couple of things to say. So firstly, Josh, don't be surprised if I, as Dean, putting Dean hat on, approach you and say we would like you as an advisor for particular topics, Josh. So just do expect that invitation at some point. And Josh, I got quite emotional. And of course, the trouble is I couldn't really express this emotion with anybody because Steve Redhead is dead. But can I say the unbelievable joy of having scholars talk about popular culture in that way and looking at the scholarship and the intellectual ideas within popular culture was so powerful. 25 years ago, Josh, I wrote a book about an argument that and I used the whole book had one argument. Disempowered groups use disempowered sites to renegotiate their social position. And so if one is disempowered, from any of the disempowered groups, including someone that's gone through trauma, who's gone through a tragedy in life, they are disempowered and they're outside of the dominant narratives of success and all the rest of it. And so they're having to use disempowered sites like a Brené Brown to re-narrativize their lives. And you, Josh, captured that. So you brought me back to a moment of intellectual politics that was more honest and robust, and we've been lying to ourselves, Josh. I'm so grateful to you, mate.
Thank you. Which book is that?
Oh, look, that's famously called my divorce book. So yeah, that's Ladies Who Lunge. Ladies Who Lunge. It was a book of anger. Look, I've written, I think, 21 books now, and about 15 of them have been written through rage, Josh. So I'm the alt-right's worst nightmare, really. It's like I am the angry woman, and I'm the angry woman who writes. And so yes, Ladies Who Lunge did pretty well actually, but it was probably the argument was better than the book, if that makes sense, because I really believe that desperately, that the crew that are squashed down in the culture, they end up using sort of rap and dance culture and the Kardashians and Twitter to just narrativize their life. And so the idea that I've magically discovered Megan at this point of my life, and we're working with Brené Brown in this argument 25 years later is unbelievable. So I can't thank you enough, Josh. You're legendary. And look, Susan, our legendary Susan, joining us from Jamaica, Australia. And so Susan, hello, talk to us, Susan.
Yeah, hi. I was hoping to say something at the time, but I guess we ran out of time. So I don't know if I can remember all I had to say, but I have to say this. I was in shock that Brené Brown was, I guess, dissed by some scientists or by whoever. I didn't know that. So I have not read her. I've only listened to her talks. I already volunteered to be on the book club. But it's shocking because in listening to her, she applied a scientific process in, you know, when you call it social work, but I call it psychology anyway. And she was shocked by her own science. It changed her life. It has now changed thousands of lives. What mad people would think that's not good science? They are mad. So I'm literally in shock. So that alone. So and to think that basically Mega has the courage to decide that she's going to go for doing this in order to empower other people's life, and that to be something in her 60s to actually also finance her life. It's just amazing. Like, the whole presentation, both intellectually, in terms of like, you know, the capacity for future development in her life, it was just astounding, remarkable. I was very impressed.
We love you, Susan. And yes, look, I was having to manage the time quite tightly. I think probably the wonderful Debbie Hindley, Dr. Debbie Hindley, could probably have run that hour and a half all on her own. She was so invested in both projects. But I agree with you. Megan is so courageous. And I will notice she's just turned 60. She looks so much younger than me. So she's got so much time in front of her. It's unbelievable. But Susan, I suppose that's why someone from my sort of background, the humanities and the social sciences, has invested so much of my, I won't say leadership career because that's stupid, but so much of my career at this stage in empowering colleagues in social work, nursing, midwifery, these disciplines that came so late to our university sector and have been treated so disgracefully, Susan. So they've just been sort of parked as like, well, what do midwives do? Was like they activate new life, dude. So I'm not sure what you're doing with your day, but I got enormous respect for midwives. So Susan, I suppose that's the gift of being a dean, is that I can stop the, oh, look, I'm a physicist, therefore, well, she's a midwife, sort yourself out, right? And so that's probably the gift of the comprehensive university, I think. Yay. So I'm excited. We've got so much. Look, I've got a question from wonderful Jilly, who's joined us today, but I will make sure, and it's good to see the beautiful Noreen. We love you, Nor. We've been talking about you overnight, you superstar. Lovely to see you. So colleagues, we will start with a wider question. Has anyone got a question or a topic they'd like to go with or talk through? Oh, thank you, my darling. I just want to make sure everything technologically is right. So greetings, colleagues. Welcome, Charles Darwin University, and welcome to this, our first double confirmation.
What's that, team? Do we know what that is?
In our new milestone process. They have fantastic.
My bad. I linked the confirmation to candidature, so someone might have it on.
I think somebody's playing the recording.
Josh. Oh, Josh, can we tell?
Can we do that? 2 Taras.
Look, 1 Tara is enough. You only have to ask Jamie Quinton that. So, Josh, that was terribly exciting and weird. I didn't quite remember the drugs that I deployed to activate that, but I thought, there's me and my mouth is not working. It's 1968, mate. Unbelievable. So, colleagues, any questions or topics to start us off? And then we're going to go to beautiful Jilly, who had a really interesting topic to start us off. So who's got a question? So is beautiful Nor, darling, are you in? You got something to talk about? Because you were ready to rumble there. Where are you at, darling?
Hi, Tara. I'm still in Kandari, yes, but I'm working now for managing my research permit. But I'm waiting now for my supervisor feedback. She told me that she would send it for 1 until 2 days, but now it's almost 2 weeks. So that's why I'm waiting her feedback. And I'm worried, but I'm still learning about my research proposal. In the meantime, I'm managing my research permit because now Indonesian in national elections, so it will be complicated. So I'm using my time to manage it and try to prepare for my COC slide, because thank you, Megan and Kaifa, for the beautiful confirmation. Oh my God, it was so fantastic. Megan, I'm your fan. Yes. And then after that, I'm trying to make my slides for my COC. In the meantime, and I'm waiting for my supervisor's feedback. And today, in this morning, I sent email for them and asked whether I have any kind of something that I have to add to my proposal or not.
Yes.
So if not, can I submit it to the HDR? Because I'm waiting for almost 2 weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
So look, I've got some great response to that. We need to say good evening to the legendary Liam, who, like Donna, has joined us in the middle of the night. We love you, Liam. You're a legend. Now, before I engage with the notion of feedback and timely feedback and so forth, Queen Lorraine is straight in there, mate. So Lorraine clearly has some stuff to say. You go, girlfriend. Have we lost Lorraine? Where's Lorraine?
It may sound a silly question. So with each chapter, Tara, I've always got in my mind the so what. Okay, so you're writing this, so what?
Yeah.
I'm writing this chapter around the motorcycle clubs, their vests, their patches, and tying that to symbols, you know, like tribal, tattoos, the Harley Davidsons, the whole image thing.
Yeah.
And I can't find my so what.
Yeah.
So it just sounds like at the moment it's more of a story than a. So my question is, does every chapter have to have a so what, or is it okay if the overall thesis has the so what?
Right, great question. So I tell you what, Lorraine, we're going to answer that one, and then we're going to go backwards to the wonderful Noor, because the feedback one is crucial. So hang on there for 1 second and we'll answer Lorraine's one first. And obviously, colleagues, I notice Liam's in and out, bless him. So we'll talk about that. Yeah, so look, Lorraine, every chapter does have to have a so what, and it's got to resonate with the big chapter screaming, why should I give a damn? And each chapter needs to confirm that. So what you're doing there, Lorraine, is powerful. And all that stuff, of course, that you've talked about is the semiotic system of a community. It came from subcultural theory in sociology. Liam's done this work. I've done this work. So what's required is that granular analysis of the sign system and the codes that are naturalized in a subcultural configuration. And of course, we talked about popular culture. Subculture is a great example. So such subcultures, and Lorraine, I know you're not using that language, and neither should you, but the whole point of a subculture was to appropriate particular signs and codes that we take for granted in the culture, reappropriate them, re-language them, and render them meaningful for a community, right? So I'll use the punks as the great example. So they took a garbage bag and they took safety pins and they made a dress, right? So they took things that we take for granted, put it together in a new way, and magically that created a subculture. So this is the hard chapter, Lorraine, because you need this granular information, but you need to explain at the start and the end about why these sign systems matter. And I would argue, and disagree with me, but at least I'll give you a resonance to work against, Lorraine, is that these sign systems exist to create space, to create separation for these men, women, I'm sure non-binary identifying crew, to drag particular understandings of masculinity and life and narrative and create some space and create an alternative trajectory that operates around societal structures, right? So in other words, that's the so what. So the amazing thing is the work that you're doing demonstrates how that space and difference and etymology is being created. So that's the so what that leads to the so what of the thesis. Is that helping? Argue against
it is. Yeah, thank you. do you have any papers that you would recommend or authors for me to go?
Look, I do, and you saw my face. We'll go to Liam in a second. And look, I'm recommending something that, to be frank, I don't really like recommending, but you have to cite it. And there was a gentleman by the name of Stuart Hall, of course, a wonderful Jamaican scholar that moved to the United Kingdom and the posh end of town and became a professor and so forth. And he was the head of the Birmingham Centre for Contemporary Cultural Studies during its height, Lorraine. So he was of a Marxist persuasion and used subcultural theory, and particularly his famous paper, Lorraine, is called Encoding and Decoding, right? And that is the article that everybody cites. It's from the 70s, man. And, you know, and so you've really got to have referenced that. Do I agree with that? Do I think it's currently still useful? Not hugely, but it is a starting point for you. And I would then go through Bob Hodge and Gunther Kress and their work on language as ideology and the social semiotic. You'll love the social semiotic, Lorraine. That will help enormously. And then to sort of carry that theoretical narrative to its sort of end game for you, I will talk about the person I slept with, which is, of course, Professor Steve Redhead, where he configured post-subcultural studies. So post-subcultural studies was the concept that Steve came up with. So if you look at his books, Rave Off, End of the Century Party, those books in many ways critique or unravel the Stuart Hall configuration there. So all of it's a little bit naive for us now, Lorraine, because it makes a big deal about something small, and of course that's the point of subcultural theory, but it still renders those who want to separate themselves from dominant culture, it acknowledges the work that's required to do that.
Lovely. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Oh, well, look, I'll go to Liam, because obviously Liam is working on this on a daily basis. I taught this. I don't necessarily do this theoretical work anymore. But Liam, have you got anything you want to add to that, particularly with regard to sociology and criminology?
Yes, it was so ironic today because my final year undergraduate I was teaching Police in the Crisis from Stuart Hall today. So that is, and I was trying to make it contemporary because Stuart Hall died in 2004, and there's a massive lag on his intellectual legacy as a result of that. And I think he would make, like Steve, so much of the COVID-19 pandemic and what we've been through as a society, especially claustrophobism as well, and what that would do if those narratives were kept forward in our kind of theoretical compass. But what I was going to say, Lorraine, is that in terms of your feminine subjectivity, Bev Skeggs, I think that I'll let Tara speak about Bev. But Bev, she basically she's world leading. She put feminist sociology and cultural studies on the map in England. She was one of the feminist jurisprudence, etc. And she absolutely revolutionized. She started her career at Keele University, where I used to work as a lecturer, and her legacy still lives on there. It still lives on through the Sociological Review Foundation as well, which she revolutionized in the 80s. And I just think there's so much writing about class as well, and embodiments of class within gender. But I'll let Tara speak more about Bev, because Tara knows Bev quite well. So.
Well, Steve knew her very, very well because they lived in the same building, the same loft in Manchester. So I knew it accidentally through it's a sexually transmitted disease, that connection. So Lorraine, you will love Bev Skeggs, and thank you for reminding me. So Bev needs to be talked about so much more than she is. She's one of those truly, I get quite emotional, one of those truly brilliant women that if Bev had a penis, she would be beyond the reputation of what we have of Stuart Hall now. But because she has a vagina, people like Liam have to come to a gig like this and go, oh, by the way, I remember Bev Skeggs. So Bev Skeggs really, and Megan, remind me to talk to Piper about this, because Piper hasn't cited Bev. Bev really has done the tough work to transform the boundaries of sociology and thinking about class and gender and that sort of difference, what resistance looks like for women and for the working class. So a great working class woman who managed to get through, the university sector in the north of England when it still wasn't, widening participation yet, and really did it pretty hard. So Bev Skeggs is legendary. And also, Lorraine, what I will try and help you with too is, Liam mentioned Policing the Crisis. These are very old books. Okay, so Policing the Crisis was about particularly how Black men are patrolled and how they are policed, and how when Black men decide that they've had enough, that suddenly becomes a crisis for the dominant culture. Now, Policing the Crisis is so old. 1976 it was published. My PhD which was finished in 1994, my goodness me, was basically a rewriting of Policing the Crisis. Okay, so what I'll do, Lorraine, is I'll send you some of those, mid 1990s critiques of it that might be useful. And as Liam said, the claustropolitanism critique of this sort of argument is also significant. Let me get my brain working through the day, Lorraine, and I'll try and help you with that as well. Oh, what a way to start. Now, we need to, of course, now return to the legendary Noor and think about feedback. Now, everybody can offer a commentary on this. And it's great to see Ruth in, by the way. The light in the darkness is with us. And look, Ruth, you might want to speak to this too. So let's talk about timely feedback. Now, when students complain, and I live in Complaint Central, my office is students come in and go, do something about it. And I wish it was more complicated than that, but that is my life. And so the number one critique is, I don't get feedback, or I don't get timely feedback. They're 1 and 2, right? In my office every day. So firstly, beautiful Noor, you're not on your own. And there are challenges when you don't get timely feedback, because you've then got all the version control problems. You don't know if you're moving forward when your supervisor doesn't actually like this. So timely feedback is everything. So when Megan sends me a draft, I try to send the draft the next day if it's humanly possible. And I did that this morning with Megan, because timely feedback is integral to quick completions and quick development. So Noor, the first thing I'd say is you haven't got timely feedback. So what you need to do now is this, as you've said, work on your PowerPoint slides for your confirmation of candidature presentation, work on your bibliography reference list, okay? Read your document again, sentence at a time, make it as clean and as crisp as you can. Use some sort of helping software, whether it be the word grammar and spelling checker. Pro Writing Aid I'm using at the moment, which is quite interesting. I rarely sort of recommend anything, but that's been quite interesting as well. So in some ways, Noor, darling, go your own way and do the things you have control over. Control what you can control.
Okay.
The challenge you've then got, darling Noor, is that when that feedback comes in, the version your supervisor was working on is not the current version. So what you then have to do is print out the supervisor's response and work it as a paper draft onto your current one. So it's not a version control debacle, right? But the most important thing is be confident. I think you've got to assume that it's going to be okay. You've got to assume it's going to be fine, and that these are granular improvements, and you get on with your own life and keep developing that. And look, darling Noor, I've got a busy weekend, but I tell you what, you send me a draft and I'll try and read it for you tomorrow afternoon, okay? Just so you've got a second mate to offer a counterpoint for you, okay?
Okay, thank you so much. I love you.
I love you more. Now, Ruth, what's your perspective on the feedback, feed forward, timely feedback? What do you do in the time when you're waiting for the draft, Ruth?
Yeah, so this is something that I've really had to kind of learn to manage. I think the thing that can sometimes be hard to remember is that our supervisors are so busy and have so many things that even though things are a priority for us, it's not necessarily a priority for them. So like you said, I try and have something else on the go that I can be working with. Yeah, and also, you know, I've been, before I started my PhD, I was working for 20 years. So I'm used to being in a workplace, and I'm used to managing up and managing down. But you know, thinking about it, if I was if I was a recently graduated from an undergraduate degree into a postgrad, I think I would find it quite challenging to manage this. So I'm grateful for the life experience that I have that kind of gives me some tools to be able to negotiate this. But yeah, it's a challenge.
Oh, Ruth, well said. And so, Noor, you're absolutely not on your own. It is common. And look, I will go to our favourite engineer, because Kylie is my my sage, my muse, the person who keeps me alive, who keeps me functional, who keeps me laughing. But also, Kyles, you are an engineer, and so project management and time management is your bread and butter. So that's what you do for a living, Kyles. So, and you have to manage a bunch of people that ignore deadlines. I mean, you have to manage academics who ignore deadlines, often with health and safety consequences. So any techniques you can give the hood?
Oh, I like where do I start? I did like your comment about pushing it up and pushing it down. I actually had that conversation this morning with somebody where competing requirements, they both want it, like they want it done all at the same time. And I just pulled out the whole, unless you can work out how to clone me, this is the one that I'm working on today, whether you like it or not. I know she didn't like it, but that's what you have to do. And again, my priorities, I always tell myself, was that the lack of planning on your behalf doesn't constitute an emergency on mine. So if I knew how to, and I say that quite a bit,
I know you do.
I wish I had the answer for that too.
But Kyle, can I say what you've said there is this great line that I use a lot, which is, you're not the boss of me.
Yeah.
Right.
Whether they like it or not.
Yeah, you're not the boss of me. So it's hard for students to do this, Kyles, but you've got to be as I keep saying, you've got to be the star of your own life, right? You've got to be the star of your own life, and you've got to try and use supervisors. And Ruth, this feeds beautifully off your argument. You've got to use supervisors as your consultants, right?
That's a really good way to look at it, and get that off them and manage their time, but have that planning in your back of your head that if they do, you need to have that, like we call it float, that extra bit of time that we can push back. Give them an early delivery if you need it Tuesday. If you need it Thursday, ask for Tuesday, and plan your work around that as well. So you've always got that little bit of time up your sleeve.
Bloody hell, I'm going to talk about float a lot. I thought float meant something completely different. I'm a very rude person.
Oh, engineers, we have a lot of really rude terms.
Look, I'm learning that. So so Kyles, that's important, that's significant. But if you can, the problem is through the bulk of sort of doctoral education, the supervisor's been bloody up here and the student's been down here, and you will do what I tell you to do. I'm a wizard. And of course, the problem is then it means all the students are sitting there quite passively going, well, where's my feedback? And actually, if you treat the supervisor as, you know, in some ways they're working for you. I work for Megan. I work for Megan. Right. And so therefore, and I do everything I can to work in a timely fashion for Megan. This is not a power structure, right? In fact, I'm of service to her. But and therefore, you know, that's sort of the consultancy model might be better. But straight to Josh, brother, go, mate.
Oh no, I completely know where you're at. When I first started sending articles out for peer review, I got really paralyzed by the weight. And I really did it. It's sort of, you know, I'd sit around and just, you know, chatter away and look at all these submission portals and not do anything because I had all this stuff out and I was waiting for feedback. And so I ended up having to sort of get a few strategies down to stop myself from doing that. And two that have worked really well. One is, you know, I have a whiteboard like Tara has with plans down for stuff that's right in front of me all the time. And I have a little box down the bottom for it. And before I submit anything, whether it's feedback to or a draft to a mentor, or sending an article out for peer review, I make it a requirement that I write down in that box what I'm going to be doing the next day after that, so that that way I already have down that I'm going to be doing something else tomorrow, and I'm not going to care when I get this feedback. I'm not going to care, even though I do, right? But there's something there to do afterwards. And also, I think what can really help is limiting your access to emails can help sometimes too. So I now have a Microsoft Calendar reminder of a half an hour slot that is just emails. So I know I get my time with my emails, and I get to check if there's any notifications there or anything, but I can turn it off throughout the day. So a bit of digital dieting, as Tara would say, on just, getting yourself away from that anxiety and having something else to do.
No, Joss, do you ever find that when you do that email, and this is when I'm going to look at my emails, people have that bad habit of just sending an email and then rocking up at your door going, just send you an email, want to talk about it. Like, whack off.
Yeah, I fled the country, so it's been a lot easier for me. But
And look, you two, that's brilliant advice. And Josh, I'm sort of, the busier I get, the more intensive I have an interpersonal, very intimate relationship with my whiteboards. So I think the publications are a way for me to organise that. So once it's to the journal and it's being reviewed, I let it go. It's cascading down the board. But as you've said, then I've got my little whiteboard where, what am I doing tomorrow? And I write that down and I stay with that advice, right, Josh? So I think that's absolutely brilliant. And also in terms of emails, I think that's crucial. I do not understand when the 24/7 emails that I have the right to phone you anytime. I don't know when our transformation of the workplace happened, Josh, but what I have to do now involves me being rude. Now, I'm really a good Irish Catholic girl and I will never be rude. But I'm these days, Josh, having to sort of, when people go, I sent you an email, I sent you another email, and then they sort of get on the mobile phone, and I have to explain to them, with the greatest respect, I'm not a sex worker and I'm not a drug dealer. I'm not a sex worker. I'm not a drug dealer. You can't phone me and think that I'm going to be available. That's not how the post-Fortis workplace is in operation. And it sort of shocks people a bit, Josh. They're sort of like, but then they sort of realize, it's like, well, why would you magically think that you're going to use this object, press some buttons, and that human's going to be available for you? Where's that come from? Don't know. And yet, you're not a drug dealer. Straight into Liam, who is also not a drug dealer.
No, I'm not. However, Tara, we need a digital dieting 2.0, like the second version, please. And especially a chapter on the Teams ringtone. It's just, that thing is the bane of my life, Teams. It is not, we're all doing the rock together, the trauma rock about Teams, because I have students, colleagues, everything think that, I'm available 24/7. I'm like, I'm not an on-demand service. Please stop doing this. Myself and Alison in the workplace enact really, really good boundaries, and we say to students, we are not replying to you via this Teams app. Like, we didn't opt into it. We will use it for video discussion as a platform, but it's not an instant messaging tool. And you need to get that out your head. Like, we have emails, and that's a formal way of communicating with us outside of work, and we're not going to respond within 3 hours and then on a Saturday and expect a meeting on Monday.
No.
We have to keep saying this because we're looking like the horrible old cows who are not being responsive to students, and it's just like, no, we're enacting good boundaries, and we're doing this for our colleagues as well.
I think that's brilliant. I've heard recently, can I say, I just looked at my watch, some random's phoning me and I get it on my watch. How is this even a thing, right? So Liam, yeah, well done, Lorraine. It's like, when in doubt, start removing clothing, randomly remove jewelry, remove clothing, leave me alone. Liam, this is increasingly being called, green dot. So people are using Teams going, I saw it was a green dot and you were available, right? Who are these people? Anyway, so yeah, Liam, there is going to be a new version. I've been asked to do a keynote down in Melbourne in June, and I think the title is going to be something around populist information literacies trump and a post-information future. So I'm looking at how populism and the Donald Trump moment and the disintermediation has created this incredibly flat model where everybody's time is my time, right? So it's just a colonization of everybody else. So Liam, really, really crucial point. Oh, it's all
I had to say that, Tara, I've never experienced this before, but I had a student email me on a Saturday and say, I've got a deadline, you know, for Tuesday, and then copy my boss into the email.
Yes.
And say Liam is not responsive on a Saturday.
Yes.
And I'm just like, this is not dignity and respect shown towards a member of staff. You know, I would not do that to you, so please don't do it to me.
Yeah, and of course, that's the problem. That's the disintermediation, right? That's the disintermediation whereby I have a right to email you and CC what I describe as half of the Northern Territory. So I get a lot of emails, Liam, where someone is replying to me and then CCing half of the Northern Territory because they're all terribly interested in this person, right? So this is the sort of collective narcissism of the culture. And Liam, what you will increasingly see as you become Dean and as you become Deputy Vice-Chancellor, as you move up, you think, oh, I've got more autonomy, I've got more power. Actually, Liam, what happens is you simply the CC line becomes even more frightening. So a student is unhappy with something and they will CC the Vice-Chancellor into my emails. So, and you've met the wonderful Vice-Chancellor in Digital Office Hours. So Scott Bowman is in the CC line of a student unhappy about when they're getting feedback from their supervisor. So we do that. That's what I look at Mary's face. I love you, Mary. So it's about, and you know, because obviously Scott is terribly interested in the movement of drafts for a higher degree student, right? Because he hasn't got a lot to do with his day. But Liam, it's understanding where that mindset has come from, and we might all talk about that because that's quite interesting. I did want to check in with John too, because obviously John's just about to finish. So John, have you got any advice you'd offer about the drafting and the editing and stuff for the wonderful Nor and building on Kylie's empowerment, leave me alone, or quote unquote rack off?
Yeah, I feel I'm in a very different position from people like you, Tara, and most, in that I'm not in an office being organised by others all the time. My time is my own, and it's more a matter of motivation, which may be more Nor's position. But I'm waiting ages for a journal to get back to me, but I put that aside. I don't have a whiteboard, but I have a sheet of paper where I, sometime after a good sleep, I've sat down and written at least half a dozen things that, oh, I've got to remember to do that, I've got to do this, and then I generally mark them with a priority. And every time I've got a free moment, or, you know, that's not I'm waiting for something else, I go back to that. But I've never had the issue of sitting there quite wondering what to do, because there are so many things to do. I'm a ferret in many ways. I'm always going, oh, well, that didn't come back. What am I going to do with that? How do I find that person? Being a real detective to ferret out information, consider how you can use different courses to get around things and find out something that you need to know, because there's an endless potential there in whatever you're doing.
Oh,
that makes sense.
Oh, John, it does. So how brilliant is that? I mean, I hadn't thought about that. I've got to get myself another whiteboard. I'll get myself another whiteboard this afternoon for stuff to do when randoms don't fulfill their obligations. So I think that's great. So here's the stuff, because I'm sort of in a panic zone, John, where I go, what one job can I do tomorrow and finish? And that's what's on the whiteboard. But actually your point is, here's stuff, and if there's a bit of grooviness, this is the groovy board. So straight to Josh. Talk to me, brother.
Oh, John, that was awesome advice.
Awesome.
It just reminded me of another strategy that I used to use, Noor, when I was quite early on in my PhD, because I think, you know, you submit a big draft or a big milestone and you want to reward yourself, but you don't want to sit around waiting. So one of the things that I did is whenever I would submit something and I wanted to get my mind off waiting for it and I wanted to do something else, but I didn't, you know, I couldn't think of what the next step was or anything, I would use that moment to go, all right, I've done something good. Now I can read a piece of scholarship that I think is really interesting, but might not be directly related. So I'd always use those moments to read like the fun papers or something, for something that could be completely unrelated, but usually ended up not being unrelated and would go in the thesis anyway. So that's another piece of advice I'd give you, is if you're feeling like, oh, I'm waiting for something, read something wild that you think is really cool, and out there in terms of scholarship. Yeah.
Josh, I love you. I think you and I were married in a previous life. So I'm at the point now where I reward myself with reading. So it's like, because life is so chaotic, it's like, you know what? All this has happened. I'm going to sit on my clacker and I'm going to take the time and I'm going to read this and I'm going to enjoy this. So I think, no, that's brilliant. So I think our legendary men on the call have really offered some fantastic commentary here. This is great. So to John and Josh, legendary. And look, I will just, you know, our other favourite man on the call, I will just go quickly hi to Adrian. So Adrian, mate, have you got any, because obviously you're sort of like John, you're on your own a bit at the moment and having to get stuff moving. Have you got any advice to offer?
No, but I've just realized that I tend to reward myself. I'm not there. I'm not there in terms of you guys in your academic progression. I tend to reward myself with chocolate.
Nice.
But I do. I actually do. Yeah, I do go off and read other things and yeah, waiting for stuff similar to what Josh has said. I just go off and do other things. There's always so much to do. So and the work that I'm doing, I can get quite lost in it. So it's easy for me to distract myself. So yeah, but anyway.
Oh, look, Adrian, that's
where-
brilliant. I think it keeps you nice and fresh too. I think you moving modes like that is terrific. Chocolate is important. Obviously, Kylie, Jamie, Quinton and I sadly know people who have a bottle of Chardonnay, to quote Kath and Kim, have a Chardonnay bottle in the fridge. So when they send that draft, and you can see them going, when I send this draft, I can have a glass of Cardi. Come on, come on. Now, we don't know these people, Kylie. They're not close personal friends of ours. But we know them just a little bit. And so that's also, so it's like the chocolate version, but involving alcohol. Straight to Lorraine.
I was going to say my reward is instruments. I kid you not, my husband is on his way to Manham to pick up a piccolo for me.
Like a piccolo, a
piccolo. Yeah. So since starting my PhD, I've acquired several ukuleles.
Yes.
A soprano saxophone, because I had a saxophone, a harmonica, a couple of guitars. Yeah, so it's just marketplace. They're just so affordable. You
So
just
you don't
cannot go past.
You don't mean a piccolo like in a little bottle of wine?
No. I mean a little. Oh, and I bought a flute as well. Yeah.
So look. So Lorraine, just for interested parties around the world that do watch this, can you play any of these instruments, or are you simply like buying them and they sit in the room and you look at them?
So I play the piano. I've been learning saxophone for a couple of years. I'm teaching myself all of the other instruments. So no, I'm not proficient at them, but hey, the neighbours don't seem to mind because they're not knocking on the doors complaining. But that is my reward. So I will take a break and I will just go and play my little ukulele for half an hour, and even make up songs about writing a PhD.
Obviously.
Depending on how I feel the lyrics can be, quite interesting. But yeah, that's my stress release.
There's going to be a whole income stream for you. That is going to be a best-selling album. And Lorraine, I'm only laughing. You saw Jamie Quinton's face going, oh, this is too weird. So just so you know, I own this thing. What? Sorry, Jamie, go, darling.
Shall I grab the thing that my mathematician friend loaned me?
Oh yes, go do that. But I was actually saying, Lorraine, I bought a bloody ukulele, so I've got so weird now that, and of course I'm every day I learn another chord, and I'm learning Under the Milky Way. So by the end of February, I'm going to be playing the church track, which I used to love playing on guitar, which I now play on the ukulele. So you and I will exchange ukuleles perhaps later this afternoon. Go, Jamie Quinton.
So my mathematician friend said to me, oh, you play stringed instruments. I've got one in my office that I never get to touch. Would you like to borrow it for a while? And I went, sure, because I have nothing here at my disposal. And I turn up and he hands me one of these.
Oh, it's a mandolin. Oh, no, it's not. Oh, wow.
It's a balalaika.
Oh, I thought that was a drinking song. My goodness me.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So Lorraine, next time, get yourself a bloody balalaika. We'll get the bloody update on that one. What's the tuning, Jamie? Is it a guitar tuning or is it a ukulele tuning?
It's only got 3 strings. So it's like a mandolin or a violin in terms of the first 3 strings, but 2 of them are very similar and the third one is different. But no, can you hear it? Yeah, 2 the same.
Gee, it sounds a bit banjo, doesn't it? Sounds a bit down, 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 down. Oh dear me. Right, so Lorraine, that's a goer, mate. That's the next goal. Off it. Oh, thanks for that. Look, colleagues, I'm conscious of time, and the wonderful Jilly had after a very serious conversation about drinking our body weight in Chardonnay. Jilly had a fantastically important question for us all, and of course I was waiting to see if Jamie Quinton would join us today because he can offer, and so can Josh, they can offer that harder scientific end that I can't do. Now Jilly asked a question, and obviously I'm going to let her speak to her own question, but about interdisciplinary supervision. So Jilly had her first meeting with the new supervisors yesterday, so she may like to speak to that, but talking about how to manage interdisciplinarity. So my darling, do you want to speak to your issue, and let's try and all answer it as a family because it's a hard one.
Oh, yeah, no, that's basically it, whether or not I need a specific supervisor across both spheres.
And what spheres are they? Just so we know. So what spheres?
Well, one's New Testament, which I've got covered. The other is so semiotic space, communications, social media, someone from that space.
Look, it's an interesting one. So I love this. So firstly, theology is crucial, but then you're also needing textual analysis of those texts that, is semiotics. And I love the idea, my love, that you've got a proper methodology happening here, thematic analysis, content analysis, because some of the worst theorizations of theology I've ever seen, some actually written by Jordan Peterson, I wish I was joking, assume that, I'm reading Matthew and I'm going to read Matthew literally. I'm just going to overshare my engagement with the gospel, right? Because obviously I'm the font of knowledge. So the idea that you've got a proper methodology to think through theological texts, I think is tremendous. But look, I'll start with Jamie and Josh, I think. So let's, oh, sorry, go Jilly, darling.
Yeah, before that. So another thing that came up after my supervision meeting when I was trying to engage with a lecturer in communications, he was suggesting that a doctorate by publication might be a better option.
We know where this is going.
Right. Okay. So look, I'll answer that one quickly. Sorry, my small intestine just ate my pancreas. Right. Sorry. Right. Oh yeah. Breathe, Tara. Breathe through it. So look, colleagues, there are certain academics that really love the PhD by publication. Okay. And what the PhD by publication is you enroll, and during the PhD, you produce 3 to 5 refereed articles. You supposedly write an intro and an outro, send it to an examiner. Golden, right? Now, there are a few challenges with that. Knock yourself out. It's a motive thesis. It's a declining motive thesis, and I'll tell you why in a second. But okay, do it. It exists. Knock yourself out. The problem with it, my love, is it works from an incorrect premise, and that is that refereeing and examination are the same thing. And refereeing for a journal and examination of a PhD are different things, and they're not a proxy. Okay, so the first thing is don't assume that just because something's got through refereeing that it's of examinable standard, because a PhD is a genre. So that's the first critique to just remember. It doesn't mean it's not going to get through, but don't assume, oh, I've got 5 refereed publications, therefore. The second thing to remember is we live in an age of citations and competitiveness and all the rest of it. So I'll just explain one truth for you, my love, and that is the PhD by publication exists only in the disciplines where supervisors claim co-authorship. So isn't it ironic that we tend, wonderful Mary, to not see a PhD by publication in history? So John hasn't had to confront this too much either. So because it's assumed the student is the star of their own lives and they're writing their own publications, I would never say to Megan, oh, Megan, you do a PhD by publication. Oh, and by the way, when you write those 3 articles or 5 articles, I'll obviously be a co-author on them. And of course, if you remember, Doug had to change his supervisor about 6 weeks ago because the supervisor said, oh, well, look, you know, if I'm your supervisor, then I will be on those, you know, those articles. And he said, well, I'm writing a book. And she said, well, look, I'm not sure I can supervise because isn't that a conflict of interest in the research code of misconduct, right? So what I would say, and I'll be honest with you, darling, and this is my perspective, I could be wrong, I'm an idiot. What I would say to you is as follows. I would argue it's not in the student's interest to do a PhD by publication.
Okay. Yeah.
But, you know, there is an argument in some disciplines. Oh, right. Well, you know, if your supervisor's name's on the publication, it's got a better chance of getting through. We've all heard that argument. What about blind peer review? I thought we were doing blind peer review. And so just ponder that. And look, Jamie, I'll go to you. Let's go to the hard
I'd like to go to Josh first, actually.
Oh, you want to go to Josh? So Josh, of course, you know, you might want to offer comment about PhD by publication, but also mate the interdisciplinarity. Talk to me, Josh.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I'd say, Jelly, is I mean, I don't know which university, I don't know the policies, but check the policies on at what point you can change this format. Because for me, it didn't really matter. So I started off, obviously I'm in the medical sciences, so PhD by prior publication was shoved down my mouth. I think the phrase was only weak students publish a monograph or something like that was the phrase. And so I was doing it. But I think as long as you keep at the forefront of your mind that the thesis itself is the document, not the publications within it, then you're fine. And ultimately what happened with me is I got about 4 months out from finishing and I looked at the specific template and writing guidelines, and my university had this ridiculous template set up where if you were doing a thesis by publication, you could only have 1 chapter as your literature review chapter. And my thesis went to all sorts of different places. So I wanted to review the literature and present the literature as it was needed. And so I asked them, can I have multiple chapters of literature review? And they went, no, you can't. That's not how it works here. So I switched it to a monograph, you know, a couple of months out, and it was fine. And it had a lot of publications in it. So I think it doesn't really matter too much. I think the more important thing is what your expectations are around authorship with the supervisor. But in terms of interdisciplinarity, I think you've just got to weigh up how important the expertise is compared to the other aspects of the supervisor that you're after. And I think, Tara, when you republished a lot of the Steve Redhead podcasts that you two did last year, there was a good series on supervision. And I think there's one in there where you discuss the importance of expertise and how it may be overshadowed by other areas. So to give you an example, Jelly, my thesis was in neuroscience with a bit of fat studies in it. And my primary supervisor was a cartilage engineer at the end of it. And I picked her because I trusted her. And it worked. It worked really, really well. And, you know, you do miss out on that explicit instruction on methodology. You do miss out on some of that. But for me, it just meant I had to read a lot more. So, and the other thing I'd say, you know, I don't have a lot of information aside from that because I didn't really have an interdisciplinary supervisory team. But I would say maybe something that could help is that if you do end up with an interdisciplinary team, talk about that particular supervisor's chunk of the pie as being the main thing, and then the other bits as being sort of lesser. So, because my other supervisors were all neuroscientists. So when I was talking about this fat studies component of my work, I would always phrase it as, oh, and this is a small tool that's going to add to this. So, you know, just sort of belittle the other aspects and pull up their piece of it, I think might help a little bit just in terms of smoothing the communication.
Can I say Josh and Kylie were also clearly married in a previous life as well? You two are unbelievable. So Josh, I think that's fantastic advice. So Jilly, one thing before we go to Jamie and then to Liam is obviously, unfortunately, I sent you about 500 pages of my previous lectures and materials on semiotics and social semiotics. So if you're reading that, and remember that's first year, second year, third year stuff I did ages ago. If you're reading going, I understand this, then you probably don't need an expert in textual analysis. It's Josh's exact point. There's great books on how to do semiotics, da, da, da. If you get that, then you may not need that expert.
Yeah.
Let's go to Jamie. And of course, Jamie and I have supervised together in the last little bit, extreme hard sciences, extreme high humanities. Very weird, but it's gone pretty well, Jamie. What do you want to say?
So Josh, you're a legend, because I was going to say, if we step back from the details and look at it holistically, every candidature, if you have a supervisory team that have all of the expertise that encompasses all of your thesis, then the scope of your thesis is probably not wide enough. You need to develop your own expertise where you're the world expert. So you should expect in your PhD, there'll be elements within it where you're the expert, not your supervisor. So bear that in mind. And then the question is, strategically, where do you want the expertise that you can access in the supervision team? And where can you have access, where can you create expertise for yourself? And if you think about that in terms of managing your project, you will be more successful. And so then the next thought that crossed my mind was that question. So if you step back again and go, what do I want to achieve out of my PhD? Doing the PhD by publication, you're probably going to get the least benefit from your PhD because you've gone through the process, you've published stuff, you tie it up, you get it through quickly, and you get the qualification. But what did you gain from it in terms of your learning? So for me, the best PhDs are the ones that are a traditional dissertation that have publications, but it's not about the publications. The publications are not the thing that make or break the thesis. And then the document in and of itself is a self-contained piece of work where you demonstrate to the world and to yourself that you have that expertise. That's my 2 cents. I'm Jamie Quinton. Back to your regularly scheduled program.
Yes, so Jamie Quinton handled that magnificently, and I agree with every word of that. And obviously, I'm aware both Ruth and Josh, we've got a lot of colleagues working in the medical sciences, our wonderful Bree. My answer to this is always when the medical scientists go, oh, look, only very, very dumb people dumb as a box of hammers decide to do a traditional thesis because of the publications. And of course, my argument always, Josh, is when they say, well, your thesis was traditional, Tara, so you can't really speak to this. And I say, yes, my thesis was a traditional thesis with 11 refereed publications out of it, 11. So how many 11? So how many 11? So how many are, sorry, the Spinal Tap reference there. Jamie and I can go on for hours over the Spinal Tap reference. So that's the point. They're going, oh, well, you're getting publications out of it. It's not a binary opposition of PhD versus publications. Publications happen on the way through, but it's not confusing refereeing an examination. That's the difference. So straight to Liam, and Jules, I've seen your comment. We're going to finish off with you in a second, but go to wonderful Liam.
Yeah, I have to agree with all of this. So UKRI, UK Research England, the Research Councils trialled PhD via publication in the humanities and social sciences, and it's like the thing that we can never speak its name again because it's been dropped because it's a failed model. So one of my colleagues did this model, and they're still writing the PhD, and I finished my PhD 2 years ago.
Wow.
I mean, they've had like 5 publications, but they can't create a coherent narrative because they use 5 different distinct methodologies in each paper, and it's co-written with other people. So there's now doubts about whether that can actually ever be a thesis. And it's like we've just wasted 5 years. So it was proposed that this was a new way forward for social sciences, to create high citation, high metrics, etc. And then they realized during the pandemic that we're able to do that and still write in traditional methods, and use the traditional monograph way of publication of the thesis. So there's been a lot of backtracking in the United Kingdom. Over here is what I'm trying to say. But it's been a failed model overall, and it's agreeing with what Tara said, and Tara predicted this probably about 7 years ago. So yeah, listen to Tara.
Yeah, well, don't listen to me because I'm just a random. But can I say, colleagues, one of the reasons I focus so strongly on internationalisation, why this is not being world famous in Manchester or world famous in Wellington or world famous in Tokyo, that this must be an international conversation about doctoral education, is because in many ways we're running live lab experiments. Different national systems are trialling stuff and it's succeeding or it's failing. So we in Australia can pretend that the PhD by publication hasn't failed in the United Kingdom. We can live in that delusion, if you like, or we can actually make a determination that, look, it has failed, acknowledge that. So what are we going to do with that information? Sorry, Jamie, darling.
No, you're fine. I just wanted to make a final comment for the students in the room, and that is, it's important for you to realise that your goal for your PhD thesis may not be the same goal as the goal your supervisor has for your PhD thesis. And unless you have that conversation with them, assuming it's the same is a dangerous thing to do.
That is the wisest thing I've ever heard in the history of the world. What a way to finish. I'm conscious we've missed Julie's great point about interdisciplinarity and examination. How about next week we focus a lot of digital office hours on examination? How about we do that? We haven't done that, I don't think, yet. So next week is examination. Colleagues, I thank you for your time. I've loved every second of this. You're legendary humans. Sleep well, Donna. Sleep well, Liam. We may see wonderful Susan in Right Club, but sleep well, colleagues. See you soon. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.